What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bullwinkle Blueprint. Hopefully all of you are having an incredible day, and hopefully your day's over. You're driving home from the old 9 to 5. Look, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that thumbs up, and make sure you are following, because I'm telling you, these next few months in crypto are gonna be insane. Because today's story, it's not a rumor. It is not speculation. It is a move that is happening right under the market's nose. And the people paying attention, they're already connecting the dots. Someone massive just went all in on XRP. And the timing, it couldn't be any better. And it's not an accident, folks. We're going to break this down piece by piece. And we're starting with the hammer right here. Right off the bat, this is one of those not fluff headlines. People think, oh, this is fluff. I don't really understand it. Well, you're going to understand the time I'm done with it, because this is big. This is Singapore, one of the strictest, cleanest, most globally respected financial regulators on the planet, expanding Ripple's major payment institutional license. Now, after reading this, my first reaction to it, this is regulatory greenlighting at the highest level possible. Not a sandbox, not a trial, a fully licensed end-to-end payments operation in one of the biggest global hubs for cross-border money movement. Why does it matter? It's simple. For years, the XRP community talked about real-world utility, corridors, institutional rails, and this is what it looks like when the narrative becomes reality. Singapore doesn't hand these things out like coupons, folks. This signals, I should say, serious throughput that is coming. This signals approval expands RippleNet's reach. It tightens the global settlement loop, and yes, it quietly strengthens the foundation for something much larger. Momentum begins here, and here's the Ripple Insights article coming out December 1st, talking about the key benefits of the Ripple payment system, talking about obviously your digital ledger technology in here, your DLT, the key to payments, how much Ripple's going to save them, yada, yada, yada. But it gets bigger than this, because you probably think, Rip, it's small, man. It's a nothing burger. Well, not so fast, because look at this. Ripple has an official LEI registered in Singapore. It means that they have the standardized digital identity needed to plug directly into global financial infrastructure. We're talking about banks, clearinghouses, regulated entities, everything. An LEI is like a digital passport for the institutions that actually run the world. Now look, you don't get an LEI unless you're preparing for scale. You don't register it unless you are integrating with systems that care about regulatory grade identity. You combine the expanded license plus the LEI, and suddenly your Singapore pipeline, it looks a lot less like a regional operation and a lot more like a launchpad, folks. You see how everything is tying together here? Piece by piece. It is all slowly coming together. And if you noticed, Ripple, what they're doing with XRP, well, it's the only one that is actually getting adopted out there. Which brings us over to this, XRPrightnow.com. This article's title, an XRP ETF, new price highs incoming. Remember, we got a new ETF launching today, right? We look at this article, talks about the shift. Canary Capital, 108 million XRP absorbed on day one. That's an institutional intake on autopilot, right? The models floating around right now are absolutely extreme. Yeah, look, some assumptions are unrealistic. I get it, but the key point isn't the fantasy projections. The key point is simple. ETFs create persistent buyers, not emotional ones. They buy every inflow, they buy mechanically, and they remove supply from the open market. If multiple XRP ETFs start pulling in even modest flows, the available liquid supply starts thinning fast. The narrative isn't ETFs make XRP $100. Your real narrative is that liquidity changes first, price reacts later. And someone clearly understands this. Let's take a quick look at the market. Bitcoin's coming in at $85,954 ETH. 2,823, and XRP $2.02. I've said it before, don't be surprised if XRP does drop back under $2. We are okay. We have support at $1.90, $1.70, and $1.50. Those are the key numbers to pay attention to. Your fear and greed still sitting around, extreme fear. Now, talking about my partner over here, I Trust Capital. Look, if you're afraid of hacks, clicking the wrong link, or getting your funds already drained because the markets are moving too fast, you need an I Trust Capital custody wallet. No monthly fees, no startup cost, and zero stress. You get real security, real peace of mind. Stop gambling with your poor custody solutions you're trying to use out there. Folks, I Trust doesn't hold your crypto. If they go away, your crypto's still there because Coinbase Institution, Fidelity Institution, Fireblocks, they hold it. And if you do get your account compromised, someone gets your password and figures out how to log into your account, the only place they can cash your crypto out is into your bank account. It is the safest way, especially if you're going to be a long-term holder. Now let's listen to this clip.
I think it's still very likely that Bitcoin's going to be above 100,000 before year end, and maybe even above one to a new high. So Bitcoin makes its moves in 10 days and every year. I think some of those best days are still going to happen before year end.
All right, there you go. Tom Lee, I like to call him the Jim Cramer of crypto. He's doubling down on Bitcoin smashing $100,000 by the end of the year. That's 100K in 30 days. When a macro analyst like Tom Lee says the window is opening, look, he's not talking vibes. He's talking liquidity cycles. We all know that. Historically, Bitcoin's biggest move, it happens in insanely compressed time windows. 10 days, that's it. Boom, right? Done. So when Tom Lee's out there and he says that your explosive move window may be opening right now, you better believe the big capital is already positioning. And when Bitcoin volatility spikes, liquidity shifts across the entire crypto complex. And that includes, yes, XRP, especially when your ETF inflows plus your Singapore expansion are happening at the same time. This is where your plot thickens because that gets us over to this. This is your monster in the background, or if you were a little kid, the monster under your bed. Japan's yield spikes. Your carry trade unwinds. Trillions, and leveraged global positions, they suddenly get torched. This wasn't Bitcoin crashed, everyone. It was executed mechanically. Massive liquidations, ETF outflows, margin calls, and yet your whales quietly accumulated 375,000 Bitcoin. Miners, they cut selling to almost nothing. Someone is buying what institutions are forced to dump. Look, when we look at this, all of this funnels into December 18th, the Bank of Japan's decision. If they hike, liquidity drains. Bitcoin's going to retest about 75,000, exactly the same levels where it started its move upward. If they pause, we get a violent short squeeze straight back towards six figures. And during your liquidity resets like this, assets that have pre-positioned catalyst like Ripple Singapore expansion, ETF supply absorption, and strategic buying, well, they get rediscovered fast. Which brings us to the last macro piece of all of this. QT ended. We talked about this a little in the first video. I want to end with it. When QT ends and the Fed enters the final leg of its rate cut cycle, yields slide. And suddenly the markets ignored assets. Well, they stop leading. Small caps oversold plays, underpriced charts, and yes, crypto. April to May 2026 or even late 2026. That's your projected window. The moment where liquidity floods back into the exact sectors that got punished the hardest. Here's the point. If you know a rotation is coming and you see whales accumulating and regulators unlocking new rails and ETFs quietly absorbing supply, you don't wait for CNBC to confirm the trend. You prepare early because once the rotation hits, the moves are violent, fast, and they are unforgiving. When you connect all of these pieces, folks, Singapore licensing, digital identity, ETF absorption, macro liquidity cycles, the fact that we have an institution out there opening up a massive amount of accounts on the XRP ledger and the quiet accumulation during a global unwind, it becomes painfully clear. Someone big is positioning for the next phase of XRP's role in global settlement long before the retail crowd wakes up. This isn't noise. This is preparation. I hope you enjoyed. Hit that thumbs up on your way out, and I'll catch all y'all on the next one.